Hello and welcome to Diegetic Advancement. My name's Riley and today is Monday, October 27th. Another late night episode because I didn't have a good answer for today's prompt, which is most recently discovered spell or magic system. So, I'm playing the same old game. I'm not really discovering anything new, especially because I play so infrequently. And then, I'm not playing new systems very often, if at all. So nothing there, which would be very boring. And I was kind of trying to think of either something else to do or an actual interesting answer for that when I received a call from Jason of the Nerds RPG Variety Cast, which has given me something to talk about. So I'll let Jason take it away and come back and respond.
Hey Riley, Jason here. Just calling about your magic episode. The only thing I have, honestly, against mundane magic items is the fact that it makes the world very, I don't know, it just depends the feel of your world that you want, right? So if you want magic to be an everyday thing, if you want the wizards to have magical streetlights in the cities and all that, then yeah, replacing modern technology with magic items kind of makes sense. But at that point, then magic should be a lot more available in your worlds, right? You're going to have magic shops in the corners, and you have to answer why healing isn't more available. Why is there still sickness in the world? What, things like that. I don't know. I guess I like a grimmer game where I'm not a grimdark, mudcore guy, but I like magic to be weird and wonderful. I'm not, so I'd rather not be as readily available as magic shops. And I think when you start using magic items to replicate everyday items, you move into that magic shop kind of world. I don't know, just a thought. Take care.
Okay, thank you very much for the call, Jason. That's Jason of the Nerds RPG Variety Cast. The details for his podcast will be in the show notes. Go check it out. Of course, you already are. So, mundane magic items, the magic shop setting. Yeah, unless that's what you like, and it's not what I like. I'm kind of with you on this, Jason. I prefer the grittier setting. However, kind of what I wanted to talk about, and I guess this is kind of a clarification of what I meant by awarding mundane magic items or even including them in your campaign, is that I wasn't talking about making simple magic items highly available. Or simple magic highly available, such that your cities and towns basically have modern day technology, but it's just magic, so street lamps and telecommunications and all that stuff. Simply that it's, for me, it seems odd that magic items kind of, you've got mundane items, you've got swords and you've got torches, and then, the next level up are spell scrolls and magic swords that have spell-like effects and things like that, right? Surely there are some actual mundane magic items, and that's what I mean by mundane. And I guess this is the kind of problem with that word, is that it either means readily available kind of thing, or at least implies that, and that's my fault for using that word. I don't know of a better word though, but effectively what I mean is that there are magic items that really are just kind of having the same effect as mundane equipment with a little bit of zest on top, right? Because you've got the next level is really magic items that take you beyond your natural limits or replicate, spell effects and things like that. So something in between. And so I think Joe's example that he used was actually pretty good. That's Joe of the Decahedron podcast, who I kind of shouted out in that episode that Jason is responding to. One of the magic items that he awarded to players was effectively just a Zippo lighter, right? But that's just a candle. Right? You can buy candles, but I suppose you could light this one slightly quicker than you could, or easier than you could a candle. You could stuff it out just as quick. So that's it, right? It's mundane equipment with a slightly better, but different, But it gives a little bit of sense of awe as well. So it's not just like, okay, well, it's just a candle. So I fully agree with you, Jason. I prefer the grimmer setting, not abundance of magic, but I still think there's a place for what I'm calling mundane magic items. And so I guess the other thing to talk about is the difference between the adventurers and the common folk or the rest of the setting, right? Because I like a low magic, grittier setting for the setting, but the player characters, the adventurers, they have a lot of magic, right? They start off, there's magic users, clerics, and they're casting spells very quickly, and they get to decent levels of power very quickly. They're finding lots and lots of magic items very quickly. But they've got to go and do dangerous things that normal people would not do, right? Adventurers are not normal people. Very few people in the setting adventure. And so, whilst these adventurers get lots of magic items, that they're not readily available. And of course, you've got to ask questions about why that is, but simply, you also don't need to do that. Because, you've got these armies of lots of men. Why are dungeons allowed to exist? Right? Why haven't the kings seized all the staffs of power with just like brute force of sheer numbers, right? But it's a game, we can ignore that. So just the same as, there's some mundane items in the dungeon, we can ignore the fact that these aren't like kind of being populated and dispersed throughout the general population or some way to recreate them, right? So yeah, in summary, I agree. For me, or I guess in a way to kind of clarify the point that I was making, is that I'm on board with Jason. My settings that I prefer are lower magic and grittier and grim for the world, but my player characters are not that, right? They are, I don't want to say high magic, but they're not low magic, right? They're not grim and gritty like Mudcore. They've got lots of magic items. They've got lots of power and wealth and things that are just completely different to the common everyday world. And so I think there is a place for mundane magic items for adventurers, and even to start with that, because the OD&D fighter is a veteran. It's not some bloke that's picked up a sword, right? So it's completely reasonable to think that even a first level character is sufficiently different from the common folk. So just because I guess every level 1 character starts with possessing a magic item, I don't think that says anything about the rest of the population, right? Because you could have 6 players all roll up magic users, but that doesn't say anything about the general population either. And I don't think Jason's going to disagree with anything that I'm saying. It's more just a clarification point, because I agree with everything that Jason was saying as well. So thank you again, Jason, for giving me something to actually talk about today, because I was stumped. And thank you very much for calling in and listening as always. And I think that's all I had to say. Hopefully it made sense. And bye for now.